My name is Madison Taylor. I'm 26 years old, and I never thought I'd be $30,000 in credit card debt before my 30th birthday. When I applied for that high-limit card to cover my mom's medical bills, I believed we were all in this together, Mom. My sister Haley, and me. But 3 days after maxing out my new credit card, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw something that made my stomach drop: photos of my sister living it up at a luxury resort in the Bahamas. The same sister who told me she was too broke to help with Mom's treatment. The betrayal cut deeper than any financial burden ever could. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever sacrificed for family only to feel taken advantage of. Growing up, our family dynamic had always been pretty clear. My mom, Clara Taylor, raised my sister Haley and me on her own after our dad walked out when I was 14 and Haley was 12. The day he left, I remember Mom sitting us down at our scratched kitchen table. Her eyes red but dry, telling us, "It's just us three now, girls. We've got to be there for each other." And from that day forward, that's exactly what I tried to do. I was always the responsible one, the planner, the fixer. Even as a teenager, I started working part-time jobs to help with household expenses. Meanwhile, Haley was the emotional heart of our little trio. She was the one who could always make Mom laugh when bill notices piled up, or bring her tea when her joints started aching. That's how our dynamic worked. I handled the practical matters, Haley provided the emotional support, and somehow we balanced each other out. Our modest 2-bedroom home in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, was nothing fancy, but it was filled with love. The faded floral wallpaper in the hallway, the creaky third step on the staircase, the small backyard where Mom somehow managed to grow the most beautiful roses in the neighborhood, these were the constants in our lives. Every Sunday, we'd have family dinner no matter what, even if it was just boxed mac and cheese during the toughest financial times. Mom had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was in high school, but for years she managed it well enough with standard medications. She worked as an elementary school secretary, a job she loved but that didn't come with the best health insurance. Still, we made it work. She never complained, but I'd catch her massaging her swollen knuckles when she thought no one was looking, or notice how she'd wince slightly when getting up from her favorite armchair. After graduating with my business administration degree, I landed an administrative assistant position at a local insurance company. The pay wasn't amazing, but it was stable, and I had decent benefits. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment with my college friend Rachel. About 20 minutes from Mom's house, between my student loan payments, rent, and helping Mom when needed, I managed to save a little each month, but not much. Haley took a different path, always the more outgoing and creative one. She majored in communications and landed an entry-level position at a marketing firm in Philadelphia after graduation. Her job seemed exciting. She was always talking about client meetings and creative brainstorming sessions. According to her, the pay wasn't great for a beginner, but the potential for growth was huge. "I'm investing in my future," she'd say whenever the topic of contributing to Mom's expenses came up. "Once I move up, I'll be able to help out way more." That seemed reasonable at the time, so I didn't push it. About a year ago, Mom's condition took a significant turn for the worse. What had been occasional flare-ups became near constant pain. Her fingers, once nimble enough to type school reports and tend to her garden, became increasingly swollen and stiff. Her mobility decreased dramatically, making it difficult for her to handle the stairs in her home or stand for long periods. Eventually, she had to reduce her hours at work, which meant less income and more strain on her already limited health insurance. During one particularly bad flare-up that landed her in the hospital, I sat beside her bed as the rheumatologist explained that her disease had progressed more rapidly than expected. "The standard treatments aren't managing the inflammation effectively anymore," he said, his voice clinically detached yet somehow kind. "We need to consider more aggressive treatment options." That night, after Mom had fallen asleep with the help of pain medication, I called Haley, who was at some work event. The music thumped in the background as I explained the situation. "That sounds serious," she said, her voice barely audible over the noise. "But you know I'm still paying off those student loans, Mads. I'm barely making rent as it is." "I know," I replied, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "I'm not asking for anything right now. I just thought you should know what's going on." "Keep me posted, okay? I'll try to visit this weekend," she promised. She did visit, bringing Mom her favorite flowers and spending the day keeping her company, telling her funny stories about her co-workers and clients while I caught up on household chores and made calls to the insurance company. That was our pattern. I handled the practical aspects of Mom's illness, researching treatments, arguing with insurance representatives, organizing her medications, driving her to appointments, while Haley provided emotional support and occasional care packages but remained conspicuously absent when financial discussions arose. As Mom's condition worsened, her medical bills began to pile up: co-pays, out-of-network specialists, treatments not fully covered by insurance. The expenses seemed never-ending. I dipped into my modest savings, picked up freelance administrative work on the weekends, and even sold my car for a cheaper model to free up some cash. All the while, Haley would listen sympathetically during our weekly phone calls but always had a ready excuse for why she couldn't contribute financially: a surprise rent increase, an unexpected car repair, professional clothes for important client meetings. "You're so good at handling this stuff, Madison," she'd say. "I don't know what Mom and I would do without you." At the time, those words made me feel valued, needed. In retrospect, I should have seen them for what they were: a subtle manipulation to keep me carrying the burden alone. By the time Mom's doctor recommended the experimental treatment, my savings were depleted, and I was already juggling multiple credit card payments each month. But this treatment offered real hope: the possibility that Mom might regain some mobility, experience less pain, and perhaps even return to working full-time. How could I say no to that? How could I put a price tag on my mother's quality of life? The conversation that changed everything happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I had taken a half day off work to accompany Mom to her rheumatologist appointment. The office was sterile and cold, with those uncomfortable plastic chairs and outdated magazines that no one ever reads. Mom sat beside me, her hands curled slightly from the arthritis, a small smile fixed on her face as if to convince me she wasn't in pain. Dr. Richards entered with her tablet in hand, her expression giving nothing away as she sat down across from us. "Clara, we've reviewed your latest test results and response to the current treatment plan," she began, her voice measured. "Unfortunately, we're not seeing the improvement we hoped for." Mom nodded stoically, but I felt her tense beside me. "There's an experimental treatment that's showing promising results for cases like yours," Dr. Richards continued. "It's a series of specialized biologics combined with targeted therapy. The outcomes have been quite remarkable in the clinical trials, with significant pain reduction and improved mobility in over 70% of participants." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. "That sounds promising," I said. "What's the next step?" That's when Dr. Richards' expression shifted slightly. "The challenge is that it's not yet approved by all insurance providers, including yours. Since it's still classified as experimental, your current plan won't cover it." "What's the cost?" Mom asked quietly. "The complete treatment course is approximately $30,000. The number hung in the air between us, impossibly large. Mom's face fell, but she quickly composed herself. "I see. Well, we'll look into other options then." But I couldn't accept that, not when there was something out there that could help her, that could give her back some quality of life. "Wait," I interrupted. "What if we could pay for it ourselves? How soon could she start?" Dr. Richards looked surprised. "If financing isn't an issue, we could begin as early as next week. But Madison, this is a significant amount." "We'll figure it out," I said firmly, ignoring the questioning look from my mother. On the drive home, Mom was unusually quiet. Finally, as we pulled into her driveway, she turned to me. "Madison, we can't afford that treatment, you know that." "Maybe we can," I replied, already calculating in my head. "I've been researching high-limit credit cards. With my credit score, I might qualify for enough to cover the treatment." "Absolutely not," Mom protested, her voice stronger than I'd heard it in months. "I won't have you putting yourself in debt for me. That's not what mothers do to their children." I reached over and gently took her hand, careful not to put pressure on her swollen joints. "And children don't stand by when there's a way to help their mom. Let me at least look into it, okay?" She didn't agree, but she didn't argue further either. That night, I spent hours researching credit cards, comparing interest rates, annual fees, and credit limits. I found one that offered a $35, zero limit for qualified applicants, with zero interest for the first 6 months. The catch was that after the introductory period, the interest rate jumped to 22.99. Highway robbery, basically, but it would give us a window to figure out a longer-term plan. Before submitting the application, I called my friend Derek, who worked as a financial advisor. I knew what he would say, but I needed to hear it anyway. Madison, this is a terrible idea, he said. As expected, credit card debt is one of the worst kinds of debt to have, especially at that interest rate. Have you looked into medical loans or payment plans directly with the provider? The treatment center doesn't offer payment plans for experimental treatments, I explained, and medical loans require co-signers with substantial income for amounts this large. Mom can't co-sign because of her reduced work hours, and I don't have any other options. Derek sighed heavily. What about your sister, can she help? Haley says she's still struggling with student loans, I replied, repeating what had become a familiar refrain. She's barely making ends meet in Philly. Look, I understand wanting to help your mom, Derek said, his tone softening, but this could follow you financially for years, maybe even a decade. That interest will compound quickly after the introductory period. I know the risks, I told him, but what's the alternative? Watch my mom suffer when there's a treatment that could help her. I can't do that, Derek, I just can't. After we hung up, I stared at the credit card application on my laptop screen for a long time. The warning text about interest rates and minimum payments seemed to flash accusingly at me, but then I thought about Mom's hands, once so capable and strong, now curved and painful. I thought about how she tried to hide her winces when she moved. I thought about all the times she'd sacrificed for Haley and me without hesitation. I hit submit. The approval came faster than I expected. Just 2 days later, the email notification popped up while I was at work, and I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. That evening, I called Haley to update her. That's amazing news about the treatment, she said, sounding genuinely happy. How are you going to cover it, though? Did insurance change their mind? I hesitated before answering. I got approved for a credit card with a high enough limit. Madison, her shock was evident. That's a lot of debt to take on. I know, but what else can I do? Mom needs this treatment. There was a pause before Haley responded. I wish I could help more. This month has been so tight with student loan payments, and my rent just went up again. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. I'm literally eating ramen for dinner 3 nights a week. It's okay, I assured her, swallowing my disappointment. I've got it covered for now. Maybe you can help out more when things improve for you financially. Absolutely, she promised. The second I get that promotion I've been working toward, I'll start contributing more. You're the best, Mads. Mom and I are so lucky to have you. The next day, I called the treatment center to set up the payment and schedule Mom's first session. When I read the credit card number over the phone, each digit felt like another step into quicksand, but the scheduler's cheerful confirmation of the appointment date gave me something more important: hope. That evening, I drove to Mom's house with takeout from her favorite Italian restaurant. When I told her that her treatment was scheduled and paid for, she started to cry. Madison, I don't know how I'll ever repay you for this, she said, clutching my hand across the table. I squeezed her fingers gently. You don't need to repay me, Mum. You've given me so much my entire life. This is just me returning a fraction of that. For the first time in months, Mom ate a full meal. We talked about the treatment plan, about the possibility of her returning to the school job she loved, maybe even getting back to her garden come spring. That night, despite the financial anvil now hanging over my head, I fell asleep more peacefully than I had in a long time, confident that I'd done the right thing. 3 days after paying for Mom's treatment, I was at home scrolling through Instagram before bed, my usual mindless wind-down routine. I'd just finished making my usual monthly budget, now significantly tighter with the looming credit card payment, and needed to disconnect from numbers for a while. That's when I saw it. A photo of Haley, my supposedly financially struggling sister, lounging on a pristine white sand beach, turquoise waves lapping at the shore behind her. She was wearing designer sunglasses and holding what looked like a pina colada in a coconut. The location tag read The Cove, Atlantis, Bahamas. I blinked, certain I was misreading something, but the caption made it impossible to misinterpret. Living my best life, needed this luxury getaway more than you know, blessed Atlantis and treat you off. My fingers trembled as I tapped on her profile to see more. There were several posts from the same location over the past 2 days. Haley and her boyfriend Tom at a gourmet dinner, Haley getting a massage by the ocean, Haley shopping at designer boutiques. Each image was more opulent than the last. The coconut drink in her hand wasn't the only thing that left a bitter taste in my mouth. I did a quick Google search for the Cove Atlantis rates and felt physically ill when the results loaded. Room started at over $600 per night, and that didn't include the obvious extras she was enjoying. My mind raced back to our phone conversation just a week earlier. "I'm literally eating ramen for dinner 3 nights a week," she had said. The memory now made me feel naive and stupid. How could I have believed her for so long? With a sick feeling in my stomach, I began digging deeper. Scrolling back through her social media history, I discovered that this wasn't an isolated incident. Over the past year, the same year she'd claimed financial hardship, there had been a weekend trip to New York City with Broadway shows, a wine tasting tour in Napa Valley, and a ski trip to Colorado, all carefully spaced out on her feed, and always with captions about how she'd saved for months or found amazing deals. I checked the dates against my calendar and realized with growing horror that her Napa trip had been the same weekend I'd sold my car to cover Mom's hospital stay copay. The ski trip had happened right after I'd picked up extra freelance work to pay for Mom's specialized medications. My hands were shaking so badly I had to put my phone down. I felt physically nauseated, my mind replaying years of conversations where Haley had claimed to be broke, struggling, barely making rent. All those times I'd reassured her that it was okay, that I could handle the financial burden, that she could help when things improved. Things had improved for her, evidently. They'd improved enough for luxury resorts and designer shopping sprees. I picked up my phone again and navigated to LinkedIn, searching for Haley's profile. There it was, updated just 3 months ago. Excited to announce my promotion to Senior Marketing Coordinator at Barrett Media Group. The position, according to a quick search, typically came with a substantial salary increase and performance bonuses. I thought about the credit card debt I'd just taken on, the years of financial strain ahead of me. I thought about how I'd been eating store-brand cereal and taking the bus to work to save gas money. Meanwhile, my sister had been sipping cocktails by infinity pools and getting spa treatment. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of the money, but because of the lies. All those sympathetic phone calls where she'd expressed regret at not being able to help, all those times she'd praised me for being so good at handling Mom's care, they now felt like manipulation rather than gratitude. I scrolled back to the beach photo, my vision blurred with tears of anger and hurt. The caption mocked me: "Needed this luxury getaway more than you know." More than I know. While I was drowning in debt to save our mother's quality of life, she needed a luxury vacation. I thought about calling her immediately, confronting her while the rage was fresh and hot in my chest. My finger hovered over the call button, but something stopped me. The thought of Mom. She was starting her treatment tomorrow, and she needed to be calm and positive. If I confronted Haley now, it would create family chaos at the worst possible time. I set my phone down and took deep breaths, trying to process the swirl of emotions. Betrayal, certainly. Anger, absolutely. But underneath it all was a profound sadness, the realization that the sister I thought I knew, the family dynamic I'd believed in, was built on a foundation of lies. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Haley's smiling face on that beach, the weight of my credit card debt pressing down on my chest like a physical thing. By morning, my sadness had crystallized into determination. I wouldn't confront her immediately, but I wouldn't let this go either. When the time was right, we would have a reckoning. Mom's treatment came first. Everything else, including my sister's betrayal, would have to wait. The week after discovering Haley's secret luxury lifestyle was one of the most challenging of my life. On the outside, I had to maintain normalcy, taking Mom to her first treatment session, checking in with her about side effects, bringing groceries to stock her fridge, all while carrying this burning knowledge inside me, like a hot coal lodged in my chest. Every night, I'd lie awake replaying memories, reinterpreting them through this new lens of betrayal. All those family dinners where Haley would entertain us with stories about difficult clients or office politics, never once mentioning promotions or bonuses. All those times she'd examined the bill when we went out to eat, claiming she could only afford to pay for her portion, nothing more. Had any of it been true? The first minimum payment on my new credit card came due that week as well. As I transferred the money that would barely touch the principal amount, I felt a surge of resentment so strong it made me physically ill. This was supposed to be a shared family burden, not mine alone. That evening, Mom called to tell me how she was feeling after her second treatment. The doctor says we should start seeing improvements in a few weeks, she said, her voice more hopeful than I'd heard in months. Oh, and I got the sweetest delivery today. Haley sent a beautiful fruit basket from that fancy place downtown. Wasn't that thoughtful? She said she's sorry she can't visit more often because of work. I beat my tongue so hard I tasted blood. A fruit basket. While I was taking on crippling debt, Haley's contribution was a fruit basket that probably cost less than one cocktail at her Bahamas resort. That's nice, I managed to say. Speaking of Haley, has she mentioned anything about work lately, any changes or promotions? No, not that I recall, Mom replied, although she did send me some beautiful photos from a work trip to the Bahamas, some kind of client retreat, I think she said. The place looked absolutely gorgeous. A work trip, of course. Haley had crafted a completely different narrative for Mom. Did she go alone? I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. No, she mentioned her boyfriend Tom was there too. I think she said his company had an event at the same resort, so they coordinated it. Such a coincidence. A convenient coincidence indeed. The deception was so elaborate it was almost impressive. That night, I texted Haley, attempting to open a dialogue about our financial situation. Hey, was wondering if we could talk about Mom's treatment costs when you're back from your trip. The credit card payments are going to be tight for me. Her response came several hours later. Absolutely, things are crazy right now with this work event, but we'll definitely talk when I'm back. You're amazing for handling this, Mads, love you. No acknowledgement of my financial strain, no offer to help, just more deflection and flattery to pacify me. The next day, I met my friend Rachel for coffee. After 20 minutes of me uncharacteristically dancing around the real topic, she set down her mug and fixed me with a stare. Okay, out with it. What's really going on? You've barely touched your coffee, and you keep checking your phone every 2 minutes. The whole story spilled out of me. The credit card, the medical bills, Haley's secret luxury lifestyle, her lies. By the end, Rachel looked as outraged as I felt. You need to confront her, she said firmly. This isn't just about money, Madison. This is about her manipulating you and your mom. She's taking advantage of your good nature. I know, I admitted, but I'm worried about how it will affect Mom. She's finally getting treatment, finally feeling hopeful. If I create family drama now, if you don't address it, you'll end up resenting both of them, Rachel pointed out. The longer this goes on, the worse it will get. She was right, and I knew it, but knowing what to do and finding the courage to do it were two very different things. That night, I found myself looking through old family photos, trying to pinpoint when the dynamic had shifted. There we were at Haley's high school graduation, my arm around her shoulders, both of us beaming. There was Christmas 5 years ago, the three of us in matching pajamas by the tree. We looked happy, united. Had it all been an illusion? I remembered how, even as teenagers, Haley had been skilled at getting what she wanted. If she broke curfew, she always had a convincing story that would soften Mom's anger. If she needed money for something, she knew exactly how to frame the request to make it seem essential. I'd always attributed it to her natural charisma, her social intelligence. Now I wondered if I'd been naive, if she'd been manipulating us all along. The following day, I received a notification that my credit card had been charged an annual fee, something I'd overlooked in the fine print. It was only $95, a drop in the bucket compared to the total debt, but it felt like the final straw. This was my financial future being drained away, while my sister lived it up in luxury resorts. I decided that when Haley returned from her trip, we would have a conversation, not a confrontation, not yet. I wanted to give her a chance to come clean on her own, to do the right thing without being forced. She returned on Thursday, according to her Instagram story that showed her back in her Philadelphia apartment. I texted her asking if we could have dinner at Mom's on Saturday, just the three of us. Mom's feeling better after her second treatment, I wrote. Thought it would be nice to celebrate together. Sounds perfect, she replied with her typical enthusiasm. I'll bring dessert from that bakery Mom loves. As I set my phone down, I took a deep breath. Saturday would be the moment of truth. I would give Haley the opportunity to be honest about her financial situation, to step up and take her share of responsibility for our mother's care, and if she didn't, well, I had screenshots of all her luxury vacation posts saved, just in case her memory needed refreshing. Saturday arrived with a sense of foreboding that sat heavy in my stomach. I spent the morning helping Mom prepare a simple dinner, nothing fancy, just her signature pot roast that had been our family comfort food for as long as I could remember. Her hands were still stiff and painful. But she insisted on doing what she could, directing me when the tasks became too difficult for her. "It's so nice to have both my girls for dinner," she said as she guided me through measuring spices. "Haley's been so busy with work lately, and you've been running yourself ragged taking care of everything." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on me, but I forced a smile. "I'm looking forward to it too, Mom." Haley arrived at 6:30 a.m., right on schedule, carrying a pink bakery box tied with string. She looked tanned and rested from her vacation work trip, as she was calling it, and was wearing a new-looking cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly student loan payment. "My two favorite women," she exclaimed, hugging Mom carefully and then embracing me. I returned the hug stiffly, which she either didn't notice or chose to ignore. "The bakery had that chocolate hazelnut torte you love, Mum." I couldn't resist. "You spoil me," Mum beamed, taking the box. "Let's sit down. Madison's been helping me cook all day." Dinner started pleasantly enough, with Haley entertaining us with heavily edited stories from her work retreat in the Bahamas. She described team-building exercises and client meetings, conveniently leaving out the spa treatments and romantic dinners I'd seen plastered across social media. "It sounds wonderful," Mom said. "I'm so proud of how hard you're working, sweetheart." "Thanks, Mom." Haley smiled. "It was intense but rewarding. The company really invests in employee development." I pushed my pot roast around on my plate, my appetite gone. The casual deception, right in front of me, was almost more than I could bear. "Speaking of investments," I said, setting down my fork, "I got the first bill for Mom's treatment this week." A flicker of discomfort crossed Haley's face, but she recovered quickly. "That's great that the treatment has started. How are you feeling, Mom?" "Don't change the subject, Haley," I said, more sharply than I intended. "We need to discuss how we're handling these medical expenses moving forward." Mom looked between us, sensing the sudden tension. "Girls, don't worry about the money right now. Let's just enjoy dinner." "No, Madison's right," Haley said, her voice artificially bright. "We should talk about it. I know I haven't been able to contribute much financially because of my student loans, but things at work are looking up, maybe in a few months." "A few months," I interrupted. "The interest on this credit card is accumulating daily. In a few months, the debt will be even larger." Haley's expression hardened slightly. "I said I'll help when I can, Madison. Not everyone is as financially stable as you are with your practical job and your practical apartment." The condescension in her tone pushed me over the edge. "Stable? Are you serious right now? I sold my car. I'm taking on freelance work on top of my full-time job. I eat ramen too highly, not because I'm at a luxury resort bar that charges $20 for a cocktail, but because I'm trying to make ends meet." Silence fell over the table. Mom's eyes widened in confusion. "What luxury resort?" Haley said it was a work retreat. "Mom, I'm going to get you some water," Haley said quickly, standing up. "Madison, can you help me in the kitchen?" I followed her, fury building with each step. Once in the kitchen, she whirled on me. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "Are you trying to upset Mom when she's finally getting treatment?" "No, I'm trying to get you to take some responsibility," I shot back. "I know about the promotion, Haley. I know about the real nature of your work trip to the Bahamas with Tom. I've seen the Instagram posts, the shopping sprees, all of it." Her face paled, then flushed with anger. "You're spying on me. That's really healthy, Madison." "It's not spying when you're posting it publicly for the world to see. You told me you were eating ramen 3 nights a week. You told me you could barely make rent. Meanwhile, you're staying at a resort that costs more per night than I make in 2 days. You don't understand my financial situation," she defended, "just because I took one vacation." "One vacation? What about the ski trip to Colorado, the Broadway weekend, the Napa Valley wine tour, all while claiming you couldn't help with Mom's medical expenses?" Haley's expression shifted, becoming more calculating. "You've always been like this, Madison, controlling, keeping score, wanting to dictate how everyone should live. Not everyone wants your boring, responsible lifestyle. Some of us actually want to enjoy our 20s. This isn't about lifestyle choices," I was practically shouting now. "This is about you lying to avoid financial responsibility while I drown in debt." "Girls," Mom's voice came from the doorway. We both turned to see her standing there, leaning heavily on her cane, her expression a mixture of confusion and distress. "What's going on?" Haley immediately softened her tone. "Nothing, Mum. Madison's just stressed about money, that's all." "Don't do that," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "Don't minimize this and make me sound irrational." I turned to Mom, taking a deep breath. "Mom, Haley got promoted 3 months ago. She's been taking luxury vacations and shopping at designer stores while claiming she can't help with your medical bills. I've been carrying the entire financial burden alone." Mom's eyes shifted to Haley. "Is this true?" For a moment, Haley looked like she might continue denying it, then her shoulders slumped. "It's complicated, Mom. Yes, I got a promotion, but living in Philly is expensive, and—" "Not as expensive as the Cove Atlantis," I interjected. $600 a night, Haley, while I took out a credit card with 23% interest to pay for Mom's treatment. Mom slowly made her way to a kitchen chair and sat down heavily. "Haley, look at me," she said, her voice uncharacteristically stern. "Did you lie about your financial situation?" Haley's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't think it was that serious," she said, her voice small. "Madison always handles everything so perfectly, she never seems to struggle or need help, and yes, I got a promotion, but after years of barely making ends meet. I wanted to enjoy it a little." "While I sold my car?" I asked incredulously. "While I took on crippling debt?" "I didn't know about the credit card until after you got it," Haley protested. "By then, the trip was already booked and non-refundable. You could have cancelled, you could have contributed afterward, you've had countless opportunities to help, but instead, you've been living it up while lying to both of us." "Enough," Mom said firmly. "Both of you, sit down." We obeyed, like children being scolded. Mom looked between us, her expression pained. "Madison, how much debt have you taken on for my treatment?" I swallowed hard. "The treatment is $30,000, with interest. If I can only make minimum payments, it could end up being much more over time." Mom closed her eyes briefly, absorbing this. "And Haley, what is your current salary after this promotion?" Haley looked down at her hands. $75,000 base, plus performance bonuses." Mom's eyebrows rose, so did mine. That was significantly more than I made. "And how much have you contributed to my medical expenses in the past year?" Haley's voice was barely audible. "The fruit baskets, and I paid for your prescriptions once, when Madison was out of town." The room fell silent again, the weight of the disparity hanging in the air between us. "I never wanted either of you to sacrifice for me," Mom finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "But Haley, what you've done or rather, not done isn't just about money, it's about honesty, it's about family." "I know," Haley whispered, tears now streaming down her face. Madison has always been the responsible one, the one who has it all together." I felt like I was finally getting ahead in life, finally having some success of my own. I didn't want to give that up. "So instead, you lied and manipulated us," I said, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Do you know what it feels like to discover that your sister, who you've been protecting and making excuses for, has been living a double life?" Haley looked up, her expression suddenly defensive again. "Oh please, Saint Madison, so perfect and self-sacrificing, you love it, don't you, being the responsible one, the one everyone depends on, it gives you some kind of moral superiority." "That's not fair," I started, but Mom interrupted. "Stop it both of you, this isn't helping anyone." She turned to Haley. "I'm deeply disappointed in your choices, Haley, not because you took vacations or bought nice things, but because you lied to us while your sister struggled." Then she looked at me, "And Madison, I never asked you to take on this burden alone. I never wanted you to sacrifice your financial future for me." "I know, Mom," I said softly, "but what choice did I have?" "We always have choices," she replied. "All three of us have made choices that brought us to this moment. Now we need to make new choices about how to move forward." Haley stood abruptly. "I need some air," she said, her voice choked. Before either of us could respond, she had grabbed her purse and rushed out the front door. Mom and I sat in stunned silence, the confrontation having gone both better and worse than I'd imagined. The truth was out, but the damage to our relationship felt vast and possibly irreparable. "I should go after her," Mom said, starting to rise. I gently touched her arm. "Give her some time, this is a lot to process for everyone." As we sat there in the quiet kitchen, the chocolate hazelnut tot still in its box on the counter, I wondered if our family would ever be the same again. The days following our confrontation were filled with tense silence. Haley didn't return my calls or texts, and Mom reported that her communications with Haley had been brief and superficial. Meanwhile, I continued taking Mom to her treatments, watching with cautious optimism as the medical team reported early positive indicators of improvement. "She'll come around," Mom assured me one afternoon as we drove home from the clinic. "Haley has always processed difficult emotions by withdrawing. Remember when she broke up with her first boyfriend? We didn't see her for a week." "This is different, Mom," I replied, keeping my eyes on the road. "This isn't about a breakup. This is about fundamental trust in our family." Mom patted my hand where it rested on the steering wheel. "I know, sweetheart, I'm not excusing what she did, but I also know my daughters, and I have faith that we'll find a way through this." I wished I shared her confidence. The weight of the credit card debt hung over me like a storm cloud, making it difficult to imagine a resolution that didn't involve lasting resentment. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I received an email notification that stopped me in my tracks. It was from my bank, confirming a transfer into my account, the sender Haley Taylor, the amount $15. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief. There had to be some mistake, but when I logged into my banking app, there it was. The transfer had gone through, with a simple memo line that read, "For Mom's treatment." 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Haley's name flashed on the screen. "Hello," I answered, my voice uncertain. "Hi," she said, sounding equally hesitant. Did you get my transfer?" "I did," I confirmed. "Haley, that's a lot of money." "It's half of Mom's treatment cost," she said. "It should have been my contribution from the beginning. I've been thinking a lot these past 2 weeks, Madison. You were right. I've been selfish and dishonest, and I'm really, really sorry." Her voice cracked on the last word, and despite everything, I felt my own eyes welling up. "Can we meet somewhere to talk?" she asked. "Not at Mom's, just us." We agreed to meet at a neutral location, the coffee shop halfway between our places where we used to study together during college. When I arrived, Haley was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She looked different somehow, less polished, more vulnerable, with her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and minimal makeup. "I got you a vanilla latte," she said as I sat down. "Still your favorite, right?" I nodded, wrapping my hands around the warm mug but not drinking yet. "Thank you for the money, Haley, it makes a huge difference." "It's the least I could do," she replied, looking down. "Actually, it's literally the least I could do, considering I should have been helping all along." There was an awkward pause before she continued. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching since our fight. I spoke with a therapist twice last week, trying to understand why I've been acting this way." She took a deep breath. "The truth is, I've always felt like I couldn't measure up to you. Madison, you've always been so capable, so together. When I finally started making good money, I think I went a little crazy with it, trying to create this picture-perfect life that I could show off." "You don't have to explain," I started, but she shook her head. "No, I do. I need to be honest with you. The vacations, the shopping, it was all a kind of escape, from guilt, from responsibility, from feeling inadequate, but it was wrong, and it hurt you and Mom. I can't change what I did, but I can try to make it right moving forward." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "I made an appointment with a financial advisor last week. She helped me come up with this payment plan." She slid the folder across the table. "I can contribute $1,500 monthly toward Mom's medical expenses and to help pay down the credit card debt. It's not as much as I'd like because I need to pay off some of my own debt first." Turns out those luxury vacations weren't exactly budgeted for properly, but it's a start. I opened the folder and scanned the neatly organized payments schedule, complete with projected interest calculations and timeline. It was thorough and thoughtful, not the impulsive gesture I might have expected from Haley in the past. "This is really responsible," I said, looking up at her with surprise. A small smile flickered across her face. "Don't sound so shocked, I can learn." Her expression turned serious again. "I also spoke with Mom yesterday. I apologized to her and promised to be more present in her care, not just financially but physically too. I'm going to start taking her to some of her appointments so you can have a break." The relief that washed over me was so intense it was almost physical. For so long, I'd been carrying the entire burden alone, convinced that it was my responsibility and mine alone. "I'd like that," I admitted, Sometimes it feels like I've put my entire life on hold while trying to handle everything. Because you have, Haley said gently, and that's not fair to you. I should have stepped up sooner, and I'm sorry I didn't. We spent the next hour talking more openly than we had in years, about Mom's treatment progress, about our careers, about the financial realities we both faced. By the time we finished our coffees, something had shifted between us. The trust wasn't fully restored, that would take time, but there was a new foundation of honesty that felt like a start. The following weekend, we met with Mom to present our joint plan for her care and financial support. She cried when we showed her how we'd be splitting responsibilities going forward, not just the monetary aspects but the practical day-to-day tasks as well. My girls, she said, holding one of our hands in each of hers, this is all I've ever wanted, for you to support each other. Over the next few months, our new system began to take shape. Haley set up automatic transfers for her monthly contribution and started taking Mom to her Thursday appointments while I handled Mondays. She learned the medication schedule, became familiar with the treatment protocols, and even researched additional physical therapy options that might help with Mom's mobility. Meanwhile, I began to reclaim small pieces of my life that had been set aside in the chaos of Mom's illness. I joined a book club that met monthly. I started putting a little money aside for my own future again. I even went on a date for the first time in over a year, nothing serious, but a reminder that there was more to life than work and caregiving. 4 months after our confrontation, the three of us met with Mom's rheumatologist to discuss her progress. The news was better than we'd dared to hope. The treatment is working exceptionally well, Dr. Richards told us, reviewing the latest test results. The inflammation markers are down significantly, and based on your reported pain levels and mobility improvements, Clara, I'd say you're responding even better than average to the protocol. Mom squeezed our hands, tears of joy in her eyes. I can button my own blouse again, she said proudly, and last week, I managed to water my roses without dropping the can. It might seem small, but to me, it's everything. It wasn't just Mum who was healing. Slowly, steadily, our family was healing too. The wounds of betrayal and resentment were gradually being replaced by a new understanding, a more equitable balance of responsibility, and a deeper appreciation for each other's strengths and weaknesses. One evening, as Haley and I were leaving Mom's house after dinner, she paused by my car. I've been thinking about what you said that night, she told me, about how I manipulated you with flattery, always telling you how good you were at handling everything. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was using your competence as an excuse for my avoidance. I want you to know that won't happen anymore. I believe you, I said, and was surprised to realize that I genuinely did. And I've been thinking too about how I never asked for help directly. I dropped hints and expected you to offer, then resented you when you didn't. That wasn't fair either. Look at us, Haley smiled, growing and communicating like actual adults. Shocking development, I laughed. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how far we'd come in just a few months. The credit card debt was still substantial, but with both of us contributing, the monthly payments were manageable, and we were making progress on the principal amount. More importantly, the burden no longer felt crushingly lonely. Mom was getting better. My relationship with my sister, while forever changed, was in many ways stronger and more authentic than before, and I was learning that asking for help wasn't a sign of weakness but a recognition of my own humanity. The journey wasn't over. There would still be medical bills, still be difficult days ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about our shared future as a family. 6 months after that fateful Instagram discovery, life had settled into a new normal that would have been unimaginable to me before. Mom's health had improved dramatically. She was back at work part-time and had regained enough mobility to tend her beloved rose garden again. The credit card debt, while still substantial, had been reduced by more than half through our combined efforts, and most surprisingly, my relationship with Haley had transformed into something more honest and balanced than it had ever been. On a crisp autumn Sunday, the three of us gathered for our now regular family dinner, a tradition we'd recommitted to with new appreciation. Mom had prepared her famous lasagna, a task that would have been impossible for her before the treatment, and Haley had brought a bottle of wine that was nice but not extravagantly expensive. A subtle but meaningful shift from her previous spending habits. I have news, Mom announced as we settled at the table. Dr. Richards says I only need to come in for treatments once a month now, instead of weekly. My latest tests show the inflammation is the lowest it's been in years. Mom, that's amazing, I exclaimed, reaching over to squeeze her hand, a hand that was now capable of squeezing back. We should celebrate, Haley suggested, maybe a weekend trip somewhere, something simple but special. A year ago, that suggestion might have triggered my anxiety about expenses, but now I found myself nodding. That sounds perfect, maybe that little bed and breakfast in the Poconos we used to visit when we were kids. The ease with which we could now discuss such plans, with a shared understanding of our financial boundaries, was a testament to how much had changed. Later, as Haley and I washed dishes side by side, another new routine we'd established, she nudged my shoulder gently. You know, I was thinking about something the financial advisor said to me during our last meeting, she said. Scrubbing a stubborn bit of cheese from a plate, she told me that money problems in families are rarely just about money, they are about communication, expectations, and patterns established over years. I nodded, drying a wine glass carefully. That's insightful, I think she's right. For so long, I resented being seen as the irresponsible little sister, Haley continued, but instead of proving that perception wrong, I leaned into it while secretly trying to create this perfect, glamorous life that would somehow make me feel, I don't know, worthy, equal to you. It was exhausting, and ultimately empty. And I resented being the responsible one, I admitted, always having to be the planner, the problem solver, but I never actually communicated that resentment. I just expected everyone to read my mind and offer help without being asked. We were both playing roles that didn't serve us or our family, Haley said. It took a crisis to break the pattern. An Instagram, I added with a wry smile. Haley groaned, God, those posts, looking back at them now, I can't believe how desperately I was trying to project this perfect image while my actual life was such a mess. My credit score was tanking, I was potting designer clothes on credit cards with astronomical interest rates. All to keep up with these marketing colleagues who always seemed to have everything together. The irony is that they were probably doing exactly the same thing, I pointed out. Everyone curates their public image. True, she acknowledged, but I was doing it at the expense of my family, and that's what I can't forgive myself for. I set down my dish towel and turned to face her. Haley, at some point, you have to forgive yourself. You've made amends, you've changed your behavior, that's all anyone can ask. Her eyes welled with tears. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time you got so responsible, I teased, bumping her hip with mine. We finished the dishes in companionable silence, then joined Mum in the living room for coffee and dessert. As we chatted about everyday things, Mom's garden plans, my recent promotion at work, Haley's new budgeting app that she was almost comically enthusiastic about, I found myself observing our family dynamic with new awareness. Mom had always been our emotional center, but now there was a resilience to her that came from weathering a serious health crisis and emerging stronger. Haley still brought energy and humor to our gatherings, but it was tempered now with a newfound thoughtfulness. And I was learning to relax my grip on control, to trust that I didn't have to manage everything alone. The credit card that had once represented such a desperate gamble was now nearly paid off, thanks to our joint efforts. I'd continued making the minimum payments, supplemented by Haley's monthly contributions and occasional larger payments when either of us had extra funds. Mom had insisted on contributing too, once she returned to work, despite our protests. It's my treatment, my responsibility, she said firmly. I appreciate your help more than I can express, but I need to contribute what I can. That was another lesson we'd learned, allowing each person the dignity of contributing according to their ability, without judgment or scorekeeping. Perhaps the most profound change was in how we communicated. The habit of honesty that had begun in that coffee shop confrontation had expanded to all aspects of our relationship. When Haley was struggling to meet her monthly contribution due to an unexpected car repair, she called me immediately to discuss options, rather than making excuses or avoiding the issue. When I felt overwhelmed with work and caregiving responsibilities, I now felt comfortable asking directly for help, rather than dropping hints and harboring resentment when they weren't picked up. We weren't perfect, there were still occasional flare-ups of old patterns, moments of defensiveness or withdrawal, but we had developed tools to recognize and address these moments before they could fester into larger issues. As the evening wound down and we prepared to go our separate ways, Mom pulled us both into a hug. "I'm so proud of you too," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "not just for helping me through this illness, but for finding your way back to each other." Driving home that night, I reflected on the journey we'd been through. The betrayal I'd felt upon discovering Haley's deception had been real and valid. The anger, the hurt, the sense of being taken advantage of, all of it had been justified. But if I'd held on to those feelings, if I'd refused to give Haley the opportunity to make amends, I would have lost something precious, the chance to develop a more authentic relationship with my sister. Sometimes, healing comes from unexpected places. Sometimes, the very crisis that threatens to tear a family apart becomes the catalyst for building something stronger. And sometimes, the heaviest financial burden leads to the richest emotional growth. The road ahead wasn't without challenges. There would still be medical appointments to manage, financial decisions to navigate, and family dynamics to balance. But we were facing these challenges together now, with a foundation of honesty and shared responsibility that made the burdens lighter for all of us. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I thought about the thousands of families out there facing similar situations: medical crises, financial strains, complicated sibling dynamics. If you're one of those people right now, struggling to balance care for a loved one with your own needs, feeling alone in carrying heavy responsibilities, or dealing with family members who aren't pulling their weight, I want you to know that change is possible. Difficult conversations can lead to healing, patterns can be broken, and families can emerge stronger from even the most challenging circumstances. What patterns exist in your family that might need addressing? Have you experienced a situation where betrayal eventually led to growth? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life family journey stories. Remember, even in our darkest moments, connection and honesty can light the way forward. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and courage on your own family journey.